Tonight on CFTK-TV News, solutions may be found for cancer patients in the Northwest. We get an update on Mpox and its role in Canada, and a plane crash found on a Calgary golf course.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Damian Smith, and thank you for joining us here on CFTK-TV. Our first story of the day is about residents of the Northwest that are struggling to pay travel costs for cancer treatment, but they may have some relief soon. CFTK's Jaylene Matthews has more.
The BC government recently announced they would provide $20 million over 2 years to support travel and lodging for cancer patients living in rural and remote areas of the province. This builds on last year's $10 million investment. That 2023 investment saw just under 1,400 cancer patients from 249 communities receive travel support funding, a 742% increase from the previous year. MLA Ellis Ross says it's a good thing for cancer patients, but would prefer to see the program expanded.
I also think that it shouldn't just be restricted to cancer treatment, because there's other treatments that rural people have to access that cost just as much. Kidney transplants, for example. Anything to do with where you have to travel to Victoria, Vancouver, or even elsewhere around BC. So it's a good thing to have it for cancer treatment, but we also should open up for medical treatment across the board.
He also says he's not sure it's enough money.
But for medical treatment, I just don't think 20 million is enough. And government knows the hardship that rural people go through in terms of expenses when trying to access health treatment. They know it. I mean, I brought it to the legislature myself. I talked to government about it and told them, and they were aware of it. And the simplest answer I got was it's something that they didn't anticipate when they centralized health services. Okay, great, you acknowledged it. But you haven't really done anything to actually offset the cost. Now all of a sudden we get an announcement specifically for cancer treatment costs. But I don't know how it's going to roll out.
As of 2021, cancer remains the leading cause of death in Canada. An estimated 2 in 5 Canadians will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, and it's estimated it will kill 1 in 4 Canadians. For CFTK News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
There were a couple of reports from over the weekend that have revealed that there are several fires of concern throughout the northern BC area. One fire is located a few kilometers north of Hirsch Creek Park by Kitimat and has managed to grow to cover 2.2 hectares of land. And the other fire is not far from Whitsett, which is being called the Coria Creek wildfire. Because of its proximity to Whitsett, it has resulted in both the area putting an evacuation order into place. This comes after another evacuation alert was also recently put into place for 6 properties located along the Susquehanna River due to the Nettlezool Creek wildfire, which is listed as out of control and covers around 1,100 hectares. In an online report, the Kitimat RCMP disclosed what had happened to them leading up to the halfway point of August. One notable experience saw a response to a ditch collision in a ditch on the side of Kitimat Village Road involving a side-by-side ATV, which resulted in the ATV's driver, who apparently consumed alcohol before getting behind the wheel, getting a 90-day driving prohibition. Another case saw patrolling officers getting notified by a pedestrian that a crashed vehicle on Dyke Road, which has since been abandoned. The police were able to discover who the owner of the vehicle was and made sure they didn't get hurt in the accident, and then issued them a violation ticket for leaving at the scene of an accident. Well, with the rise of technology usage over the past 10 years, a lot of research is being put into children's screen usage, especially in their earlier years. Sarah Plowman from CTV News has more on this issue.
Tablets sometimes play babysitter, entertainer, teacher. New research shows more time with the device could lead to more tantrums.
I do notice that when my kids get too much time with screens, tablets, that they're a little moodier.
Published in JAMA Pediatrics, the study surveyed 315 families in Nova Scotia and tracked the behavior of kids from 3 to 5 years old.
And what we found was that more tablet use at the age of 3 was associated with an increased tendency to show anger and frustration 1 year later.
By age 4, more anger and frustration tended to lead to more tablet time.
So we were essentially observing is the emergence of a sort of vicious circle.
Experts say early childhood is a sensitive time for children to learn to manage their emotions. Screens don't offer that.
And the body of this research is showing is it's not necessarily the screen itself, it's the fact that the kids are not actually playing with other kids.
It's recommended children younger than 2 have no screen time except for video chats with family and friends. And for kids 2 to 5, for it to be limited to 1 hour a day or less. Researchers note some parents pacify their children with screen time. While it could help in the short term, not in the long term, they say.
The use of this strategy can interfere with children's ability to develop internal strategies for regulating their emotions.
Their advice is monitor not just what's on screen, but also how often kids are in front of one. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at Mpox and its status around the nation. Well, Mpox has started to make its way around Canada. However, cases remain extremely low compared to African nations, and Canada Health is prepared just in case we see a bigger increase in the nation. Here's Camille Karamali with CTV.
Mpox, formerly known as monkeypox, is running rampant in Central Africa.
These cases continue to rise because there's so few mechanisms to really defend against this epidemic.
And now health experts say it's just a matter of time until it makes its way to Canada.
I think there's a very high risk that clade 1 Mpox will be seen here in Canada.
The thing is, Mpox has already broken through Canada's borders. It's just not the kind that's overwhelming hospitals in African nations. The newer Mpox variant, called clade 1, surging in the Democratic Republic of Congo and now spreading through Central and East African nations, while other countries in the continent are already dealing with the clade 2 variant that was dominant last year. Clade 1 now also spreading outside of Africa, most recently detected in Sweden and Pakistan.
Clade 1 is felt to transmit faster, and it's also felt to be more fatal. So it is much more dangerous in that sense.
With an up to 10% fatality rate in Canada since January 1st, there have been over 160 cases of the clade 2 variant, including over 90 in Toronto. No cases of the clade 1 variant so far.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a case here because Canada is one of the most highly traveled, high-income societies on Earth. We often are a site where diseases like this can then be the next site of spread.
Health experts believe Canada is ready when the virus arrives at our doorstep. With vaccines currently available and the spread primarily through human contact, Health Canada says it has a response plan ready should the situation get worse. Kamil Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
With the Jasper wildfire taking over the town just a couple of weeks ago, many of the former residents are making their way to BC to resettle. Here's Andrew Johnson from CTV.
When fire was threatening to overtake the town of Jasper, Terry Lonsberry was one of the thousands forced to pack up and go on the run. Now he's one of the hundreds without a home, his devoured by flames.
It was security. Anytime things got too rough in the world, could always go home. And for the first time in my life, I don't have that anymore.
And he's decided his next home will be in BC.
There's nothing left in Jasper for me now. I've managed to get a spot in Parksville on Vancouver Island that I can go to. Had a RV site there reach out and said, "We can help you. We've got a spot for you."
The problem? Getting there. His truck died after evacuating, stranding Lonsberry in Kamloops, awaiting very costly repairs.
Turns out the old Gigi truck that I bought to pull this trailer was a real lemon and, needs around $20,000 in repairs, which is more than the thing's worth.
Lonsberry's destination is Vancouver Island, where he was once a volunteer firefighter, and now his former team is trying to make it happen through their own sizable donation and a GoFundMe campaign.
We're really feeling for him and hoping that he can stitch everything back together and come out with some form of a decent life when this is over.
It's the most amazing team. It's like family.
Thousands of dollars have now been raised to get Lonsberry's truck back on the road so he can get on with his life.
The compassion of people that have been helping is just, it's been overwhelming. It's a different feeling being on the other end of the spectrum and needing the help.
A well-deserved twist for a dedicated volunteer dealt a tough hand. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Now on to your daily weather forecast. The North Coast should see cloudy conditions tonight with a 40% chance of showers sometime this evening. There will be winds coming south at 20 kilometers per hour and a low of 14 degrees. In the Terrace and Kitimat area, there will be clouds mostly with a 60% chance of showers in the evening time with rain beginning near midnight. Winds will be heavy at 40 kilometers per hour, gusting to 60 with a low of 12 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, it will also be cloudy with some local smoke intact. There is a 40% chance of showers with a low of 10 degrees. Now let's take a look at your upcoming weekly forecast. The North Coast will see temperatures cool off this week with some even distribution throughout the week. There should be some rain tomorrow, followed by a few days of sun and clouds, followed by rain heading into the weekend. A high of 18 will be on Thursday, while a low of 11 will be on Wednesday night. The Terrace and Kitimat area right after a hot weekend will see 15 degrees tomorrow, followed by mostly sun and clouds for the rest of the week. The weekend will also get some rain in there. A high of 21 will be Thursday, and the low will be Wednesday night at 9 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, we will see a similar pattern with slightly warmer temperatures. The high of 24 will be on Thursday, while the low will be Wednesday night at 7 degrees. The area as of right now does have a special air quality statement. Now onto your roadside report in the Northwest region. On Highway 16, there is road maintenance and crack sealing in the Telkwa area, construction and utility work in Vanderhoof, construction work in Burns Lake, and utility work in the Fraser Lake District. Highway 37 has crack sealing and seal coat near Dease Lake. Highway 118 has bridge construction near Topley, and the Nishka has road maintenance near Nass Harbor. Now let's take a look at the cameras around the Northwest. Still to come, a plane crash in Calgary was not what a local golf course had on their radar. Well, just before the start of the weekend in Calgary, golfers were enjoying their time on the pitch before a smaller-sized plane crashed just near the airport. Members were astounded, and Tyson Fedor from CTV News has the rest.
It's not an attempt at a green most golfers are accustomed to.
I said, there's an airplane crash on our course. And from then on, it was just in our carts and gone. And first thing we did, wanted to see if anybody was hurt.
This twin-engine Piper PA-31 Navajo skipped the runway at YYC, coming in for an emergency landing in a greenside bunker at the Wingfield Golf Course. It was on hole 1 of the runway 9.
See the indentation in the bunker. So he went right over top of the green into the bunker and then basically did a 180 flip or turn.
Around 12:30 Friday afternoon, emergency crews were dispatched to a plane crash. The pilot, the lone occupant, walked away with only minor injuries.
And he was bleeding. We helped him clean up a little bit. And in the meantime, those doors were all open and emergency services were here.
First time I've seen anything like this. I mean, I've seen come in low, I've seen them everything, but I've never seen on our course.
Some golfers say they didn't see or hear the incident, rather the aftermath.
Yeah, we're going to keep our heads up now, and the best thing is the guy's okay.
According to flight radar, the plane had left Calgary for Hinton. It then was on its way back to Calgary but did not make it.
This aircraft did leave the YYC aerodrome approximately 2 hours prior to the incident happening. So we do scenario-based training constantly for this very type of incident in and around the aerodrome area, so around YYC. We do have dispatch protocols, so we are ready for these types of calls.
As for the golf course, staff are working with investigators, but business continues to go on as normal, with golfers teeing off here, hoping to avoid any bunkers.
I think we're going to fill up because most people want to see the plane, but who knows? So we have shut down the runway for probably the rest of the day until the plane is removed.
Tyson Fedor, CTV News, Calgary.
And with Canadian students preparing for another year of schooling, there's been some new information released about student financials. Here's Quinn Keenan from CTV.
Education savings and planning company Embark recently conducted a survey of 1,000 Canadian post-secondary students. The survey asked how students were dealing with rising costs. Results showed that over 1 in 4 students have considered dropping out because of money.
It is a tough time for students right now. They are feeling a little overwhelmed with the financial obligations as it relates to post-secondary education.
Post-secondary schools are well aware that many students are struggling. The U of L says it's had to get creative to find the best way to help support their students.
We're always looking to create new bursary scholarships and awards, and new opportunities are being announced every day. A couple of them, the Robertson Phillip Family Prize, another $2,000 scholarship for students, the Vandenhoek Schlachter Pride Award.
The Lethbridge Polytechnic Students Association is also doing what it can to help. The association has set up a free snack pantry for students and offers emergency food hampers.
We definitely try to assist these students in whichever way we can. In terms of food, the association provides food pantries for students, and we have a on-campus food bank of sorts where we try to help a student with a hamper of food each month.
According to Embark, 44% of students are spending 3/4 of their income on education expenses. The best advice is to start saving for school through an RESP as early as possible.
RESPs are super important to really help your family, your kids be successful as they go to post-secondary, and even a little bit, $25 a month, if that's all you can manage, still really adds up and gets those government grants for you. So
both the U of L and Lethbridge Polytechnic are also offering emergency bursaries. The bursary is intended for students struggling from an unforeseen financial burden. Quinn Keenan, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Now we'll take a look at the stock market. The Canadian dollar is up 0.3 cents. The price of gold is up $3.50. Oil is down $1.88. Natural gas is up 12 cents. Aluminum is up $2. In Toronto, the TSX is up 61.78. The Venture Index is up 6.62. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 236 and NASDAQ is up 245. Still ahead, it is a big week for the Democrats as they host the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. With school right around the corner, many parents are seeing their kids go off to college or university for the first time. And with that, the empty nester syndrome can sometimes be a big detriment. Deborah Roberts from ABC has the rest.
It's the problem parents everywhere know all too well, learning to let go, becoming empty nesters.
Going to college.
The emotional dilemma portrayed in the Oscar-nominated film Lady Bird.
It's okay. She'll be back.
Your entire life has been revolved around your children, their schedules, what they're doing, what phase they're entering. And so I was very nervous.
46-year-old attorney Nakia Gray and husband Mike became bona fide empty nesters more than a year ago. They're still learning the ropes and planning their future.
We've also just been really exploring what retirement looks like, just thinking about where do we want to live? Are we going to stay in the area?
The adjustment is called empty nest syndrome, and while not a clinical diagnosis, it's real for some.
What do most parents experience? I know for me, there was a real sadness and a quiet to the house.
Yeah, so it can just be
a little bit of a shift and even crisis for some people, especially if you have struggled to kind of maintain a balance of all these different identities. You as an individual, as a partner, spouse, and then also your identity as a parent. It can be really disruptive. You have to allow yourself to connect, to share, to talk about how difficult it is, and to realize that you are grieving.
Suzanne Stavert and husband Craig have been flying solo for nearly a decade since their 2 kids left home.
You have to really think about what you want to do on this second phase in your life.
Suzanne even creating a website, Adventures of Empty Nesters.
I did it for healing. I was kind of lost then, you know, our kids were grown and gone and my husband was working and I didn't have a focus. I wanted to encourage people to go out and find adventure and to live this life instead of being super sad. Life is just beginning.
As a mom, I too am in the thick of empty nesthood. My son Nick heading off to his junior year of college.
I would say we did all right. What do you say?
And my 25-year-old daughter Leela living abroad.
Is this a time for couples to rekindle, maybe rediscover each other?
Oh, absolutely. Find ways to play again as a couple. Take a vacation, maybe plan that family vacation. Start an activity for you. So that way you're nurturing your family relationships, your personal relationship, and you're also caring for yourself as a human emotionally.
Now down south of the border, events continue to be hosted. Nominees are making stops around the country, but starting today, the Democratic National Convention will kick off tonight until this Thursday. Once again, here's Camille Karamali.
The signs, the lights, even the balloons precisely placed the night before a historic Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
Frankly, it'll be like a rock concert. I think people are going to be cheering and pretty excited.
President Joe Biden will officially pass the torch to Kamala Harris for the nomination in a keynote speech tomorrow night in front of nearly 5,000 delegates.
And I think he's going to use that time to highlight the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration.
Vice President Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, will formally accept the party's nominations.
We'll get speeches from their spouses, and those are oftentimes very important at giving you a biography of those particular candidates.
Delegates will also sign off on the party's platform, which includes raising the minimum wage, focusing on affordable child and health care, taxing billionaires and corporations, banning assault weapons, and increasing abortion protections. Former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton expected to appear midweek, while Harris will close out the final night of the convention on Thursday. Today, Harris and Walz made a campaign stop in the critical battleground state of Pennsylvania with a promise.
And we will win.
Heading to the convention riding a whirlwind of momentum. A new poll from Washington Post and ABC News giving her a 4-point lead over Donald Trump.
That is significant because you usually, as a candidate, get a bump in the polls after your convention.
Trump preparing for one of his busiest weeks yet.
I look forward to debating her, by the way. Her policies are so bad.
Fresh off a rally in Pennsylvania, the Republican nominee is set to be planning to barnstorm several key states. Meanwhile, the Democratic convention will also be a backdrop for mass protests. Organizers expecting tens of thousands of people to rally against the war in Gaza.
They want to have their voices heard. They're going to be heard, no doubt about it, and we're going to protect that.
And for the first time ever, social media influencers will be part of the mix, live streaming the entire event on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube.
That'll be it for the cast tonight. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.